In the church of the unseen tiny ball, spinning in the nothing. Amen. Let's debunk this hoax. Yo. Ancient Greeks and togas, dreaming up the scheming. Everything's just balls too small for us to gleam. And you the resolution hides them from my sight. 99.999% empty, what a sight. But wait, they're the source of all that's real and tough. Solid walls from voids, yeah, that's some serious bluff. Spinning like mad in the cult of atom bliss. Pray to Democritus or your world's gonna miss. Oh, empty space, full of faith, tiny orbs and holy grace. Can't see them but believe the lie, or your world's gonna vaporize. Atomic cold, spinning balls in the void. Empty faith deployed, reality destroyed. Big bang hoax, small ball joke. Without them, nukes go up in smoke. No atoms, no boom, boom, doom. Just a scam in the mushroom cloud room. Atomic cold, bow down or bust. Your science is dust. No atoms, no boom, boom, boom. Just a scam in the mushroom cloud room. Atomic cold, bow down or bust. Your science is dust. Now scale it up, you spaceball fanatics, hear the call. Heliocentrism's the same old spinning ball. Planets whirl around suns in endless empty black. Mostly void, but hey, it's fact. Don't talk back. Galaxies twirl like cosmic dreidels in the night. Empty space religion stars put up no fight. Irony alert, your tiny atoms match the skies. Big balls, small balls, all a pack of lies. Oh, empty space, full of faith, giant orbs and starry waves. Can't prove it but swallow the pill, or the universe stands still. Atomic cold, spinning balls in the void. Empty faith deployed, reality destroyed. Big bang hoax, small ball joke. Without them, nukes go up in smoke. Wait, no fission, no mission, just Cold War fiction. Nuclear eviction, atomic cold. Bow down or bust, your science is dust. Yeah, bust it. Hold up, disciples of the Democritus delusion. If atoms ain't real, just fairy tale confusion. The nukes, a Hollywood illusion. No splitting balls means no explosive fusion. Surprise, Hiroshimas of PSYOP show. Mushroom clouds, CGI glow. Without your spinning void called creed, the bombs are done. Plant the seed. Debunk the premise. Annihilate the myth. Atoms gone, nukes with them adrift. Atomic cold, spinning balls in the void. Empty faith deployed, reality destroyed. Big bang hoax, small ball joke. Without them, nukes go up in smoke. No atoms, no kaboom room. Just a fast in the war machine tomb. Atomic cold, bow down or bust. Your science is dust. Hoax exposed.
And we are live for a special Nukes Are a Hoax podcast. How are you doing this evening, brother?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to be here. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, so what a topic. I mean, how long have we been on this topic? It seems like near the beginning, right? The beginning of learning the Earth's a fixed and stationary plane.
Yeah, so for me, it goes even further back. So back in 2013, 2014, I participated in a podcast that was called We'll Do It Live. And one of the members that was in the chat, he called his channel Learn of the Jesuit Order. And he was the first one that was going around saying that nukes are a hoax. And just like all the other things that we were conditioned to believe, we all laughed. And after actually looking into it, everything that he was saying was correct. And his channel's gone. He ended up saying before he left that, people visited him from the, he was saying like the FBI, CIA, NSA, all those different groups, and they shut him down. He was a vibrant, colorful character that saw through the hoax and was very annoyed, and he brought his energy to the information and the content that he made. So it's gone. You can search the internet if anyone's tuning in here now or later in the future. If you can find any of Learn of the Jesuit Order, any of his videos, he also used just the letters as the shorter version of his channel. Please let me know in the comments if you can find any of his content.
No, for most of what I would say, just about all of the fixed and stationary earthers, you all probably know that nukes are a hoax because you probably heard and saw the video from Eric Dubay. And I got to say, out of all the content that Eric Dubay has put up, that's one video right there where I think it's great. I don't see any issues with it when it comes to, the models that he supports of a fixed and stationary Earth. He shills, he goes against what we can prove to be true. But so the atoms are a hoax thing comes, for me, I thought it was great. Eric Dubay putting that out. We're going to be going through that tonight. And, just adding our commentary to it, but it's actually going to all be positive towards Eric Dubay on this topic. Tonight, what we have set up for y'all is we want to do a rewind and take this conversation back to its very, very beginning, where they first started talking about what materiality is. So we don't have records of it. People talking about what made something solid before really the ancient Greeks. And so we're going to be taking a look at that timeline. Who was involved? What are their spiritual positions that they held? And what we're going to do is review the entire history of what materiality has been said to be. So you got atomism, you've got 4 elements, and we're going to be explaining what that is. We'll be talking about what we explain materiality to be, and that is we're in a virtual reality, and things are elements are what they're supposed to be. They're all programmed to have a specific weight, have specific properties. They're here in specific proportions, all spread out through this earth for us to be able to use as building materials. And that it's not atoms. Atoms is a theory. We're going to be showing everybody where that comes from.
Yes. So the key takeaways here, there is a very important part of this information that I really want people to understand. So all of the different quote unquote fear and world wars and all this type of information that people are using to quote unquote conquer other countries, all this different stuff, what it does is it does destroy the fact that Iran is actually against the USA and that Israel is teaming up and China and Russia. So just like the faking of space, you need to understand that they all understand that there's no piece of metal that you can drive another piece of metal into and have a catastrophic explosion that takes out an entire city. It's made up. It was made up by a group of men it was called the Manhattan Project. They started this fear campaign so that they could push forth agendas and take over and destroy most of the freedoms of the world. And here we are in 2026, March 13th. The most important topic that we could possibly come to you tonight in hopes that you might share this information out with other people, is the fact that not only are nukes a hoax, but the whole entire foundation of what a nuclear weapon is, the atomic bomb, is built off of, childlike fantasies made up in the minds of men who are trying to profit off of having a job where they don't actually have to physically do anything. They came up with crazy, stupid experiments where they shoot a beam or a radiation particle through a different material, and they try to count or capture those sounds or instances of this quote substance moving through something. And from that, they derive all of this other information. It's tantamount to Cavendish saying that he can weigh everything in the universe because he hung two lead balls from the roof of his shed, and he looked through the window with a telescope, and he said he saw the balls actually move closer together. The whole entire thing is made up, and time again, these men, come up with these, information, and sure, it's definitely fed from a spiritual version of reality brought forth through these men that do these things, that sacrifice these things, that perform these rituals so that they can gain control over other people. So again, what we're going to be going through, Jason's prepared an amazing podcast. If you're tuning in right now, I'm super excited that they've allowed you into our version of the internet because we're very cut off. This isn't shared. This isn't information that you're going to be hearing from anyone else. Jason, as far as I know, you're the only one that's actually saying atoms aren't real. Now we're segueing this into, if an atom is not real, then quote unquote an atom bomb is not real.
Yeah, so it's a way of excluding something, right, by debunking its premise that it's built on. So that's the approach that we're going to be taking tonight, and we're going to be doing it by showing you the history of this, showing you how it's rooted in philosophy, not a real science that's measurement based, right? So it comes from philosophical roots, and really what it is just false explanations for what things are made out of. And the premise here that's set within atomism, there's this whole debate about what causes motion. And believe it or not, that was what they're arguing about. And so it came down to this topic of space. And because the atomists won out, and there's this belief of empty space within an atom, that's literally what has transferred over to the space that we see, or, they talk about as far as a universe, right? All this outer space. So it comes from the inner space of the void within an atom, and then it gets projected out at the macro scale. So knowing this history is going to help you realize that if you still believe in atoms, you are actually a Kabbalist. And we'll be going through tonight why we could make a statement like that and say, yeah, you're a Kabbalist if you think things are made out of atoms. We want to get that point across to you, right?
Yeah, again. So do they have bombs? Yes, they can drop bombs out of planes. They can burn entire cities. The hydrogen bomb, stacking up mountains of dynamite, right? Nitroglycerin in a stable form that they can then blow up. These are real things. We're not saying that they can't actually, do devastation, because we've seen it. We've seen the evidence of that. But what we're trying to do tonight, what we're going to do, is Jason's going to lay out point for point, understanding that atoms don't exist. They're thought creations made up of the minds of men who didn't want to build anything for their living. They didn't want to work hard. They wanted to make money off of a thought, off of something that they schemed up and created into reality. And it was brought forth, and it was pushed and made mainstream and used as a narrative because it's a mechanism of control. You can search the research. We're going to be hearing names like Galen Windsor, the guy who literally eats plutonium and shows you that it's not even toxic. He helped build all of the different power plants. What they do is they create certain types of metals that have heat, which they then state is a type of radiation that then can be measured.
They're radioactive. So we'll have to get into what being radioactive actually means, right?
And they boil water. And from the water, they make steam, which is super powerful. They spin something, and with magnets, they then generate power, right? And that is all it is. And you can swim in the cool-off pools. You can eat the plutonium. We're going to be getting into all that. I just really want to bang home that you on the other side of the screen know that this information is empowering. Knowledge is power. Share this with anybody that you know that's, looking for truth and information about this whole world war, so that you can be informed that if they do use quote unquote tactical nukes, you won't have to worry. You know that they're not going to, destroy the green zone and the earth and all that. It just grows right back anyway. So Jason, I think it's time. I want you to get into this, get into the purpose of the discussion, and really get into the teaching, please, everybody. Let's go. Tune in. Let's get our thinking caps on or our reading glasses, and let's go.
Yeah, well, I want to make a quick statement. We're using ChatGPT, and it's great at helping organize a presentation like this, where it's got it bullet pointed out, where we can give you the highlights, and then you can also understand that it has the authority that comes with coming from ChatGPT, that this is a research tool, that if you go research these things, chances are you are going to find these answers. But we, as truthers, run into walls where when we get into certain topics, where we know the truth about a topic, yet the world narrative is the thing that we're fighting against, it's going to give us wrong answers. So as we go through here, what we can do is we can see that this is what ChatGPT has put out as its sanitized version. And then we have the ability to read into this. And because we know these topics so well, we know the end arounds where you can put ChatGPT into a position where it makes contradictions and it starts putting out gibberish and all that kind of stuff. But the way we're using it tonight right here is we want to go through these topics and just touch on them, where we make this real for everybody, make it easy to understand for everybody. We're talking about the earliest philosophical debate about materiality. And when is that from? When did this conversation begin? Well, it occurred in the ancient Greek philosophy around the 5th century BC. So it's before Christ, 500 years before Christ. So keep in mind that when these conversations, these debates were taking place, at the time there were no microscopes, no scientific experiments, no experimental measures. The explanation were attempts to answer fundamental questions such as what is matter made of, how does change occur, and why do objects move? Rather, if you're sitting around in ancient Greece and a bunch of guys in robes or togas or whatever, and you start talking about things are made up of, how do you have that conversation as a group?
You have to theorize. You have to do thought experiments.
And there's no iPad. There's no pictures, no graphs, none of these things. You're going to have to put rocks next to each other. You're going to have to draw things with sticks. And then you have to verbalize things. And so this is what the ancient Greeks began doing. And then they took it into these different topics. So we're going to expand on these. The early competing theories of materiality. So there has been more than one, believe it or not, everybody. It hasn't just always been atoms. Monism. So one fundamental source. Some early philosophers believed all reality comes from a single underlying substance. So you have these examples of Thales of Malthus proposed that everything originated from water. Right? That was one idea of thought. This Anaximenes proposed that everything originated from air. That was that guy's idea. Heraclitus emphasized fire and constant change. And the core idea was reality was fundamentally one substance transforming into different forms. Now, is there any way that you could try to make up something where you have some sort of material that's transforming into different forms? Would you be able to relay that to anybody?
I could look at ice and water. There's a few things that we could talk about. Hail. There's different substances, different types of gases and liquids that kind of do that.
But how would you come to the conclusion that everything was made out of water? Right? And then you got the wood, you got the steel, you got all these other things.
Can't. It's impossible.
Yeah. So some of these guys' theories, I think in the modern day, are really easy to tear apart. We can look back at these things and be like, how did these guys think that? The known change theory. So another radical view came about from Parmenides, and this is where it starts to get interesting. He argued that reality is one unified substance and that true reality does not change and that change is an illusion. Have you heard any of this? His reasoning was based on a logical argument. What exists equals being. What does not exist equals not being. Not being cannot exist. Therefore, nothing can come from nothing. How about that debunk of the Big Bang?
It's sound fundamental thinking at a very basic level.
Yeah, but then you get into a contradiction, because the conclusion from this is that change cannot truly occur. So how can a person argue that if I'm holding onto a tennis ball and I hand it over to you, that it didn't move, that it didn't change? Because that is what is being said by all this. I mean, you get to this one conclusion. How can nothing come from nothing? Everybody's good with that, but then to come to the conclusion that nothing moves, change does not occur. So this created a major philosophical problem. How do we explain growth, motion, and transformation of matter? Right? They got stuck at this and started bringing up atomism. This is when atomism was created. It emerged as a solution to the problem raised by Parmenides. So this is the first guy, although there's really nothing about this guy. His student is what we learn everything from. He was 5th century and proposed that reality consists of atoms, which are tiny, indivisible particles, can't be made any smaller, and void, empty space. This is where this whole concept originated, of void and empty space. Like the stuff you hear about in atomism. The word atom comes from the Greek atmos, which means uncuttable. So I guess they say it doesn't come from the word atom from the Garden of Eden, huh?
No.
Sounds a lot alike. So they were believed to be eternal, indestructible, solid, and indivisible, which they say that they can divide them now. So changes occur because atoms move and rearrange. Atoms themselves never change. This was the theory back 500 years before Christ that was supported by Democritus. This is the guy you're going to hear about just about all the time when you hear about the original atomism. His model claimed reality consists of only two things, atoms and void, this empty space, and that atoms differ in shape, size, arrangement, position. The different combinations of atoms create different materials. And he said that smooth atoms create liquids, right? That makes sense. And rougher hooked atoms, those ones stick together like Velcro blocks, and that's what creates your solids. Well, the debate over the void. So one of the central philosophical debates concerned whether empty space can exist. This is where this all began at. And the atomist argument is that motion requires empty space. The reasoning, objects move. If reality were completely full, movement would be impossible. Therefore, space must exist. What do you say to this, brother?
It's just random gibberish. It's nonsense.
Well, so you got the argument that, I'm holding the tennis ball. I want to get it over to you. There has to be empty space in order to get the tennis ball from me to you, right? That would be the argument that's made.
On a basic level, right? That's there obviously is voids and empty spaces throughout the realm. It's crazy that we're even questioning that there would be something in between us, or
that is the argument.
Or the tennis ball could turn into an orange.
So inside the cardboard box, there's nothing in it. Is that empty space
completely, right? Besides dust or that's all there is.
Yeah, well, now that you've answered empty space, you've fallen into the trap of the atomist argument that they say, well, that empty space is atomism, that most things are empty space. So this, keep in mind, this was the philosophical argument that was going back on 500 years before Christ. So let's talk about the anti-void argument. And that came from Parmenides and Aristotle. And their reasoning was the void would be nothing and nothing cannot exist. Aristotle concluded nature cannot contain an empty space. This idea has become famous as nature abhors a vacuum. So you see what they're doing here? Now all of a sudden you have an anti-void argument saying that nothing can't, if something exists, right, then it's not nothing. And since the void is nothing, it can't exist. That was the type of, I guess this is almost circular reasoning that would go back and forth between the voiders and the anti-voiders. That was literally the argument of the day. Oh no, that's void. That's empty space. No, that space is filled. And then we had a big change up and Aristotle's alternative model. So we were at atomism 500 years before Christ. And then for nearly 2,000 years, the dominant explanation of materiality came from Aristotle from 384 to 322 BC. So now Aristotle rejected atomism. He proposed that matter is continuous, not composed of particles. Instead, everything consists of combinations of four elements: earth, that's the dry and the cold; water, that's the cold and the wet; air, that's the wet and the hot; and fire, that's the hot and the dry. All right, so this is literally, they switched from believing in atoms to believing that everything is made out of these things. And that's the reason why things are either cold or wet or hot and dry. So everything, the wood, every mineral, every single substance, every metal, you're saying we're made out of these things. You know, fire.
That's a lot closer to the truth than empty space or non-empty space arguments that are ridiculous. Earth, wind, air, and fire. That's likely what everything is made up of. Water.
Well, every single element has its own property, right? And that's the reason why it is what it is. If you try to make something that it's not, you run into issues. So for 2,000 years, this Aristotle view of materialism reigned, and the atomism was rejected. So here's the ridiculousness: matter and form. Aristotle proposed that objects consist of matter, he called them hyle, the underlying substance, and form, the morph, the structure that gives an object its identity. And we get an example of this. A statue consists of bronze, that's the matter, and the shape of the statue, that's the form. Well, what's the problem here, everybody? What makes bronze bronze? That's the whole debate about what we're having. Like, you can put whatever shape you want to whatever you want. You can turn an ice sculpture into whatever. You can make wood into whatever, stone into whatever, bronze into whatever. What makes those elements, right, what they are? Right. So this completely jumps the topic and just goes off rails. Now, what we want to do is we want to connect how the topic of what makes up materiality, right, what is the source of that, how that's connected to religious and mystical influences. This is where it's really important, and it's hard to keep something like ChatGPT on topic because it wants to support the mystical religious influences, right? So do you want to read any of these, or should I go through them?
Yeah, you got it. Continue, please.
Some philosophers combine natural philosophy with mystical beliefs. Imagine that. So this Empedocles introduced the four elemental theory and was influenced by mystical traditions. Possibly influences included the Orphic religion, has a belief in reincarnation. This is a thing that's going to be coming up over and over and over on this topic. And I want to do the spoiler alert, everybody, right away. Reincarnation is real, but it's been trying to be hidden by the Kabbalists. They believe in it, and Kabbalists do. And then they try to, for Christians, where this teaching actually comes from, they tried to act like, no, this is all Eastern religion, this is all Kabbalah, and poison it, to poison the idea of reincarnation. So we'll be talking about how reincarnation ties into all of this tonight. So they call it the purification of the soul. The Pythagorean philosophy, Pythagoras had this cosmic harmony of the spheres, he called it, and the cycles of existence. So that's back on the reincarnation topic right there. He claimed that the soul moves through different forms of life, and one fragment attributed him to say this: I've been a boy, a girl, a bush, a bird, and a fish in the sea. Now, we know that that's not true, but that's not to say that reincarnation's not true, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
The long decline of atomism. What, everybody? How decline of atomism? Well, for almost 2 millennia, Aristotle's model dominated science. Atomism remained a minority philosophical view, and this changed during the scientific revolution. Well, I know you're asking, when was that? That was the revival of atomism in 1592 to 1655 by Gassendi. He revived atomism, but attempted to reconcile it with Christianity. His model proposed God created atoms, atoms move in empty space, and natural laws govern their motion. This made atomism more acceptable within Christian intellectual culture. Gassendi influenced scientists such as Robert Boyle and Isaac Newton. So, the same time that Isaac Newton was coming up with his spinning spaceballs and space stuff, we had Gassendi bringing back the spinning spaceballs of atomism, of the ancient Greeks. Now, when did this become what we know it as today? That took place with the birth of the modern atomic theory through John Dalton, 1766 through 1844. He introduced the first scientific atomic theory. He proposed elements consist of atoms. Atoms of each element are identical. Atoms of different elements have different masses. Chemical reactions rearrange atoms, and atoms combine in simple numerical ratios. Dalton never observed atoms directly. His theory was based on chemical measurement patterns. Here's where I'd like to break off to another slide, and I want to show everybody, we absolutely believe in the periodic table of elements. And somebody might say, well, how can you do that? Because you don't believe in atoms. Well, these are all elements that they've found that you can separate into these individual things, where you can have all of this just being a certain thing, right? And then they have different properties. And some are gases, some are liquids, and some are metallic. And there's a whole bunch of categories right here as to how you can group these things. And then they all have a specific weight per volume. And that's literally how these things are ranked here, is by the weight per volume. Hydrogen's the lightest, helium's the second lightest. Then you get down to your heaviest metals that you can have, and that's a density thing. So these things exist on Earth as individual elements, but it's not atoms spinning space balls that are made up of 99.9999999. It's like, I think it's like 15 decimal places.
Yeah.
Right. Percent empty space.
So it's really basic. It's really easy to understand. You're inside of a virtual reality, for the lack of a better term yet. I'm sure as we move forward, we'll be given more and more information in a much more clear way to explain it. And there's building blocks, right? To make a code, you need to have basic coding. You need these building blocks, bits, ones and O's, or periodic table of elements. And then once you have these things, then you can therefore start categorizing them, putting them together, and creating other things from these things. So you can't create everything from nothing, but once you create things, you can start to organize them together and create other things. It's very basic. It's very simple. If you have something, you should be able to break it down to its periodic table.
Yeah, well, and there's things that can be filtered out. So we call all this stuff surrounding us in the quote unquote empty space air, right? So from air, you can divide and get all these different types of gases that are individual in smaller amounts that are as a group together in what we call air. So the same can be done with all these different minerals. You dig up a big section of dirt. It might be dominant in a certain type of element, but it's also going to have a whole bunch of these other ones in it. And then they've figured out ways to be able to separate all these things and do it chemically, actually. That is not proof of spinning space balls being the source of the materiality, right? That is not. So experiments later used to support the atomic theory. So we're ready to duke it out with any of the people that believe in the tiny spinning balls, the atoms, and see the things that they say support the atomic theory. They have these few examples, and I consider them pretty horrible, really bad. I don't know what you all are going to think. But let's go through these. So the experiments later used to support the atomic theory. Examples include Brownian motion. Have you ever heard of this?
Just briefly, yeah.
Yeah. So this, I think I've got a shorter one. Yeah, let's go back to the beginning of this. So this right here is the experiment that revealed the atomic world, Brownian motion. Right, this was the experiment.
Bridge between two. I really wanted to make a video about Brownian motion, this jiggling motion you can see under a microscope.
That's it. You got it already, everybody. Brownian motion is this jiggly effect you can see when you look at something under a microscope. You want to talk about what the problem with this is? Atoms are too small to be seen.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So if these things are jiggling, they're not atoms. Right? That's should be pretty obvious that these things jiggling, you're not seeing atoms jiggling, but this is what they use. This was their evidence. Brownian motion was their original. They had a microscope and they saw that things were wiggly under the microscope. So they said atoms.
Because Brownian motion does something incredible. It creates a bridge between two worlds, the atomic world and the macro.
So we're supposed to believe that this is the atomic world, yet it's not small. This is, small enough that with a microscope you can see. And they say that, these things are millions or billions of atoms wide.
Scale world. And in that in-between world, none other than Albert Einstein was able to do something amazing. In this video, I'm going to show you a few different ways you can see Brownian motion. I'm going to explain Brownian motion with this model that I made. And finally, I'm going to show how Einstein was able to work out how much atoms weigh by observing and measuring Brownian motion.
So it's the same. It's the Cavendish thing repackaged. Again, you're also going to find that Einstein was on Team Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project, when they invented the nuclear bomb.
Yeah, so it goes to Einstein using this. Remember, this is the time period that microscopes are just starting to come out. They're able to look at things on the smaller scale, and they see, okay, it's wiggling.
It's vibrating.
And from that, now all of a sudden they have Einstein coming up with the weight of the atom.
Yeah, well, they can look at a star in the sky and say that you tell you how much that star weighs and what it's made up of as well.
They do say that stuff. So the next example is this electron discovery. And let's go to the electron discovery. All right, so the cathode rays lead to Thomson's model of the atom. I think I scroll here a little bit. So the Brownian motion, that's the one that we just did. Yeah, here's ChatGPT talking about Albert Einstein proposing that molecular collisions caused the motion. That's what they're saying took place. Of course, atoms were not directly observed in this experiment. Their existence was inferred from mathematical modeling. So this electron discovery thing is from this J.J. Thomson. He used a cathode ray tube. Let's go ahead and take a look what that is all about.
So today I'm at the University of Sydney with Dr. Phil Dooley, and we're talking about how our idea of the atom changed from a tiny little hard sphere to something more complicated. And this apparatus has something to do with that.
Exactly. It was quite a landmark historical experiment.
Yeah.
It's just made of a tube of glass connected to a vacuum pump, and in the tube of glass there are two pieces of metal connected to a high voltage power supply.
So we can suck the air out of here.
That's right.
And then apply high voltage to two metal plates.
Yes.
Okay.
Normally with high voltage in air, we don't get anything except maybe a big spark. But what
was that?
It's just a simple magic show. They're doing a trick. Like you put a little electricity, do a couple pieces of metal, and try to remove the air from the cylinder that it's housed in, and we're going to make something light up. Basically, all we're doing is making a light bulb here, just a larger light bulb.
Everybody's seen that static thing where you put your finger on the
Tesla.
The Tesla, and the sparks come.
Wow, right?
This is that fancy. It's the original version of that.
Geissler found, who did this in 1857, was something quite different. So shall we have a look?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's turn on the pump and the high volts. Turn off the lights so we can see what's going on. As you can see, something's happening now.
Yeah, I see a bit of a pink glow in there.
That's right. So imagine Geissler, the first person to ever see this. It's pretty surprising. That
Created a light
started
bulb.
people thinking, what is this stuff that's
A
coming
neon
from
light.
So this is what is this stuff? That's what is this stuff? And so the guy is going to come to the conclusion, those are electrons from atoms.
Wow.
Cathodes seem to be a ray emitted from this negatively charged one, which they called the cathodes, therefore it's called a cathode ray, and it became the topic for research for the next 40 years as all the big wigs of physics and science basically tried to work out what was going on.
So what did they figure out? I mean, what is going on? What's producing this glow here?
There were two main camps. One thought that it was waves, and the second thought that the electricity was being carried by a stream of charged particles. Over the next 40 years, they basically came to the conclusion? Well, it was J.J. Thomson in 1897 who came up with the idea that...
All right, so this is the cited proof for atoms now. We got our J.J. Thomson.
That there is a stream of very small charged particles, negatively charged. They're smaller than an atom. So the smallest atom...
Okay, so atoms are too small to be seen, and then this is smaller than an atom.
Hydrogen atom, they're about 1,000th of the size of that. And it doesn't matter what material the metal is, it's always the same particle. So this particle appears to be in everything. Yeah, this electron, as it was known, is what's carrying the electricity.
Hold on. I mean, what do you mean it's in everything? Because when you put different kinds of metal in this experiment, you still get the same pattern. That's simply just deduced from what I can see, is that when you put the current through a vacuum chamber with these two types of metal, then you get this light effect. That doesn't mean that wood is made up of the same substance that the light is being formed inside of this chamber. That's, you know, beyond ridiculous to put the two things together and say that that's everything.
Yeah, just all of a sudden, you have the birth of the electron.
And everything is made up of it.
On a particle that's too small to be seen, they've added something that's 1/1000th of that. And boom. This is just a mental concept.
It's everything.
Because,
He's saying it's everything.
yeah. And it all came from this stinking light tube.
So Thomson came to the conclusion that all atoms have this particle as one of their constituents.
That's right. That's right. So it wasn't a billiard ball. There had to be something inside the billiard ball.
So how do I picture like a...
Well, I mean, what is it? It's not a billiard ball. It has to be something inside it.
Yeah, it's a hollow billiard ball with billions of billiard balls inside of it that are all hollow. It's basically what you're looking at is it's a hypnotic subliminal mind control trick done through using light. I mean, who else do we know of that's deceived mankind with being the quote unquote light bearer? You know, and then you get this whole entire thread that goes back to the fact that they used some light to try to prove that everything was made from nothing in these balls. And then we go to the outer space, big balls, and the whole thing ties together quite well. Yeah. With a trick. Tricks. Just a stupid parlor trick that just fascinated people that didn't want to work. I can't even imagine that the men that were wasting all these years on this, if they could have come up with, you know, stuff to actually help humanity instead of their coming up with delusions and illusions.
All right. So then we have our third proof of atoms, the Rutherford gold foil experiment. And I think I do have
some plum pudding.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a mind boggler. They're talking about plum pudding in these videos when it comes to atoms. I don't even understand what it is that they're talking about. Never had plum pudding.
No.
So the Rutherford scattering experiment, this is explained as being one of the third proof. So this right here says in a replica. So this was 1911, between 1906 and 1913. We've got this replica. Let's take a look at this thing. This was the apparatus used by Geiger. We've heard of Geiger counter before, right? This is the guy. Geiger was doing this work here. They came up with this device where they've got this tube attached to this thing here, and then they were sending their alpha waves. So we haven't really talked about the different types of radiation yet. Right? What is radiation and what are the different types of it? Alpha is the weakest. The way they measure these radioactive things is alpha waves. Those are the ones that you can stop with a sheet of paper, right? That's literally their definition of something that's an alpha wave. You can stop it with a sheet of paper. So they sent alpha waves. We're talking about some sort of radio wave through this that could be stopped with a sheet of paper. They're using gold foil. And then they sat there and they watched this looking for little sparks. Right? That is what they were saying atoms were. So this Rutherford scattering experiment, do I have a video for that?
We'll probably be taking a first hour break soon.
Yeah. I don't think I have a video for the Rutherford scattering experiment, just that
There was, but it's not as important. Basically, what they did was, it's sort of like the double slit experiment. They shot the radiation into this apparatus, and they just noticed that some of the radiated particles hit one of the sensors, and some of the particles hit another sensor, and therefore they deduced that there was basically plum pudding made from plums. So within the plum, they're saying is the pudding. So they're saying that the fact that it was hitting the different sensors, some went through, some bounced off. They're saying that there was consisting of multiple different things within this one radio wave, and therefore they deduced that atoms were made up of multiple particles, smaller substrate of particles.
yeah. So we'll wrap this this up. I want to go through the guys like Pythagoras. I want to take this back to the roots. But the radiation detection, so we're in the modern time, the Geiger counter. This was the guy that was part of that other experiment. He came up with a device that makes a static noise when it picks up radio frequencies. So there are natural metals that emit radio frequencies. It's just one of the properties of these different elements, right?
Yeah, well, basically what you can look at it as a way to think about it in your mind is that you can hold a piece of metal or certain types of metal, and they're basically off-gassing because they're interacting with reality. When the air and the sun and heat and cold and these types of things happen, different emissions come from different materials. And so what comes off of certain type of metals, they call radiation, and then they break it down to the alpha, the beta, and the gamma, depending on what it can actually pass through, right?
Yeah, so this is literally how they rank them. The alpha, a sheet of paper will stop them. Beta, aluminum foil will stop it. And gamma requires lead in order to be stop it. So these are the things that people are all wrapped up about, is these invisible radio waves, right? And they think that that's a sign of all of a sudden we have this super doomsday type weapon possible.
Well, we're not quite there yet. We don't have the Manhattan Project and, them splitting atoms, supposedly.
Yeah, so quick summary here. The concept of atoms developed through several stages: the ancient philosophical speculation, the medieval rejection under Aristotelian physics, the revival during the scientific revolution, and the integration into chemistry and physics through theoretical models and experiments, ones that we just showed you. Let's go ahead and we'll take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll show you these characters behind this all.
Let's go.
Baby,
We are back with this forefather of all the secret societies. This guy, it all goes back to this guy.
Pythagoras.
So many different things. He's the guy behind sphericity. He's the guy behind atomism, right? So
It's probably
You
Jared
gotta-
Campanella in a past life.
you got to know where this guy got it from. Once you know that, then you got the inside track on what's going on. So this guy founded a school in which initiates were allegedly sworn to secrecy and lived in communal ascetic lifestyle. The beginning of the secret societies, could we say? Or was there some before this? This is where the worst ones come from. So the teaching most securely identified with Pythagoras is the transmigration of souls, or metempsychosis. Let's just call it reincarnation, everybody. That's what they're talking about here. The idea of being reborn again in another body. So this was a core belief from Pythagoras, but where did he get it from? Because he was a Greek, and the Greeks didn't believe in reincarnation. Right? So there's also a quick disconnect. Why is this Greek all of a sudden believing in reincarnation when that's not what they talk about at all? So he may have also devised the doctrine of musica universalis, which holds that the planets, so this guy introduced the word planets here because all of a sudden he talks about them being spheres, right from the get-go.
Yeah, the word planet just meant wandering star, not to get it twisted.
Mm-hmm. And for him, it was all about math. So we've got Pythagoras. He influenced just about everybody down the line. His influence was strong with Plato, another guy that we got to talk about. Pythagoreanism had an influence on scientists such as Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton. So Pythagorean symbolism was used throughout early modern European esotericism, and his teachings as portrayed as metamorphose would later influence the modern vegetarian movement. So we've got another factor that helps identify these groups where the Pythagoreans were a cult of vegetarians, right? They believed in reincarnation. They think it's wrong to kill animals, so they preach vegetarianism, and it's also a homosexual cult. That the connection between homosexuals that don't want to eat meat and what was the other thing? Vegetarians. So they don't eat meat, and then they all fell for this spinning space balls on the small scale and on the large scale. And this is the source of all that. So travels. This is the source of where he got his information from that he began teaching. It says that he appeared to recognize by authors later in the classical and Hellenistic periods who attributed many of Pythagoras' unusual and unconventional beliefs to travels to far-off lands, where he learned from those people himself. The doctrine of metempsychosis, or reincarnation of the soul after death, which Herodotus and Diogenes Laertius had attributed to the Egyptians. Well, they try to give credit to the Egyptians for that teaching, but question is, where did they get it from?
The Babylonians, right? Yeah, we know where they got it from.
Yeah, so claimed that Pythagoras had learned these teachings from the Magi in Persia, or even from Zoroaster himself. The Phoenicians are also reputed to have taught Pythagoras arithmetic, and the Chaldeans to have taught him astronomy. By the 3rd century BC, Pythagoras was also reported to have studied under the Jews as well. And by the 3rd century AD, Pythagoras was also reported by Philostratus to have studied under sages of India, the Celts, and the Iberians. So he was the mystery school guy. He got around, and if you had some false teachings, he was going to suck them up and spin them into
Sure.
a interweaved web, right?
And he probably had a bunch of books that were created in Solomon's era, and so on and so forth.
It doesn't stop there. They got a lot on this guy. Yeah, like I said, he's the root. It just keeps going back to him. New initiates were allegedly not permitted to meet Pythagoras until they had completed a 5-year initiation period, during which they were required to remain silent.
Crazy cult.
An extremely
That's worse than being disenfellowed by the Jehovah's Witnesses and getting back in. That's a much longer time. You have to just be quiet.
Yeah, so secret society, you can't talk for 5 years. This was a tough call to get in.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it.
The Pythagorean dietary restrictions may have been motivated by a belief in the doctrine of metempsychosis, reincarnation. Pythagoras enforced a strictly vegetarian diet. Of course, everybody's heard about his math things. His music is more obscure. This is all about spinning spheres. So on Greek philosophy, Aristotle states that the philosophy of Plato was heavily dependent on the teaching of the Pythagoreans. And then Aristotle is the student of Plato. So this is just a lineage of characters that are producing the same stuff. And yeah, speaking to on Christianity, it says this Augustine, who wrote on the Trinity, which we've exposed as false Vatican doctrine, lauds the fact that Pythagoras was humble enough to call himself a philosopher or lover of wisdom rather than a sage. So
yeah, he was wannabe Solomon.
Yeah, the guys who were Vatican insiders writing the books on the Trinity and stuff like that, lovers of Pythagoras. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? By this measure, Whitehead declared that Einstein and other modern scientists like him are following the pure Pythagorean tradition.
There you have it.
Yeah, Einstein, all the modern scientists following the pure Pythagorean tradition. On vegetarianism, until the word vegetarianism was coined in the 1840s, vegetarians were referred to in English as Pythagoreans. Did you know? On Western esotericism, the German humanist synthesized Pythagoreanism with Christian theology and Jewish Kabbalah, arguing that Kabbalah and Pythagoreanism were both inspired by Mosaic tradition and that Pythagoras was therefore a Kabbalist. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
The Freemasons deliberately modeled their society on the community founded by Pythagoras. Rosicrucianism used Pythagorean symbolism, as did Robert Fudd, who believed his own musical writings to have been inspired by Pythagoras. Imagine he thought his own music was inspired. So this shows right here, everybody, that the secret societies, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, all these swearing the oathers, at the root of it all, they're Pythagoreans. All right? And at the root of being a Pythagorean is being a Kabbalist, Kabbalah. The next character here, we don't have to go through nearly as much. On Plato, I think most of the things that he said were gibberish, but he gets mentioned in this conversation. He was influenced by Pythagoras, Herculetus, this Parmenides, the guys that we're talking about, whether or not there's movement, right? Is everything a solid thing, or is there space? And I don't know if there's too much more to be said about this, guys, other than the mathematical and mystical teachings of the followers of Pythagoras pictured above exerted a strong influence on Plato. So there was a religion, a cult created by Pythagoras that these. So this is the only thing Plato's really got to his credit here. This guy said that the twin pillars of Platonism as the theory of forms on the one hand, and on the other hand, the doctrine of immortality of the soul. So theory of forms and reincarnation, this guy was saying is basically all that Plato has got. One of Plato's most cited examples for the forms were the truths of geometry, such as the Pythagorean theorem. So, you know, the Freemasons and their geometry, it goes back to the form of Plato, which goes back to Pythagoras. And Plato evinces a belief in the theory of reincarnation and multiple dialogues. So this common thread of these vegetarians. And then Aristotle, this is a little bit of a change up because we go from the atomists to all of a sudden Aristotle comes along. He's a student of all these guys. But then he changes it up. And now all of a sudden, he just goes with like the four substances of earth, water, air, and fire. And he's the guy that tosses in the aether. This is now the explanation for space. And the reason why you hear guys like Bob Nodell talk about the aether. So this became, atomism was dumped. This right here became the source of materiality for about 2,000 years. Right? Until now, in the last like 10 years, how we're talking about how material's not spinning balls. It's not just fire, air, water, but it's actually, it's programmed. It's programmed to be what it is. And last but not least, we have this guy, Empedocles. His philosophy is best known for originating the cosmogonic theory of the four classical elements. But once again, we have another reincarnation guy. Right? So it's this same cult over and over and over again. They are at the core Kabbalists. It comes from the Mystery Babylon and Pythagoras. That's the root of it all. So I just wanted everybody to see about this guy more. This studied with the Pythagoreans on the basis of his doctrine of reincarnation. And so this does not give credit back to the creator from the Bible. All these guys that are coming up with these four elements and the roots, they're giving credit to Zeus, Hera, Nestus, Adonis. And they're saying that those gods are the source of materiality. Once again, it's just always false explanations for what makes something solid. All right? Then we take another break, and then when we come back, we'll get into Eric DeBayes.
Yeah, let's do it.
waiting patiently until it's gone. Pardon me, now that you're listening. I wish that I could sing a different song.
And we are back. And one video from Eric DeBay that I really don't have any issues with is nuclear bombs don't exist. And I think this is must-watch truther content here. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to set this up. So everything that Jason just put forth is to be added to this content that you're going to see now. So again, Learn of the Jesuit Order was 2014, making content completely exposing the fact that these bombs don't exist. But what nobody's really looked for and exposed is that, the whole root of the whole idea of atomism, and that it actually pertains to our physical reality at large. And so now the segue is that we can actually start to understand how this then, if atoms don't exist, then you're going to be able to make the connection that splitting atoms to create an atomic bomb is also a fairy tale.
Absolutely. And so Eric puts together all these clips, and let's go through it, and just stop me whenever you want, and we'll add whatever commentary we can add to this.
Are bombs truly weapons of mass destruction, or are they really just weapons of mass deception? Footage of alleged nuclear explosions, when analyzed with a critical eye, reveal undeniable evidence of photo trickery. In much of the early black and white test footage, filmed in the 50s and 60s, and shown on newsreels and fear-mongering films, it is clear we are looking at fake model sets complete with miniature houses, vehicles, and trees. Notice the unrealistic and unnatural perfect rows of disproportionately thin trees. After the flimsy model trees are blown to one side, the film quickly cuts to clips of actual trees in some other location. Similar to how a stunt double changes with the main actor during the crucial action scene. These
Cut. Next scene, right? Then cut. Next scene.
clips intersperse or sometimes superimpose footage of models with reality. The first H-bomb test, known as IV Mike, looks more like some stop-motion lava lamps than an explosion. Many other supposed nuclear tests
It goes from that bright color to all of a sudden you get these sparkle things. This is the least looking real of all the explosions I think I've seen.
appear to mix sped-up footage of sunrises with real explosions.
That's right.
To give the
Sunrise.
effect of a much bigger blast. Footage from Operation Dominic appears to show a sunrise with the brightness slider rising in post-production. Suspiciously, in some videos, the explosions are so violent as to obliterate entire houses in an instant, but yet the camera filming right next to the house survives unscathed and unshook.
So that's evidence that we're watching a camera beside a model, and the impact and the debris is very localized. Because if it wasn't, the camera would be destroyed. Right? The cameraman filming this, zooming in and panning, he's fine, but the building gets completely shredded just 20 feet away.
And it's all supposed to be radioactive. That's the yellow and black radioactive sticker. Ooh, you got to have your Homer Simpson suit on. We have in the chat, Josh Hughes says, you got to pay attention to where the camera is. It's so much of this propaganda footage falls apart as soon as you consider who was filming it. How was this filmed, right?
The blast often comes from behind the camera, and not, as they claim, from a protected location far outside the blast radius. Someone moves the camera just before and during some of the blasts, and the camera is positioned at an oddly unrealistic height. What kind of shielded tower would the camera and cameraman have to be enclosed in to survive such a test? If nuclear bombs actually exist, why would there be a need to fake footage of nuclear explosions? The Trinity and other nuclear test sites were admittedly first loaded with hundreds or up to 1,000.
So they got the footage of these guys packing it with dynamite here, right?
Yes.
They got the footage of it being set up.
Tons
On both
of
sides.
dynamite. Footage exists showing military men stacking gigantic piles of TNT and dynamite at nuclear testing sites. The official reason for this was claimed as, quote, comparative purposes, where the blast from hundreds of tons of stacked TNT would be compared to the nuclear bomb. With each team sent to separate islands, each stacking piles of explosives, but both told that the other island would have the actual bomb, it would be simple to deceive the very men creating the deception. Mushroom clouds are not unique to so-called nuclear weapons, and can be formed with enough TNT, dynamite, regular bombs, and other explosive materials. Later, supposed nuclear tests, like Able, were likely done using very large, but traditional bombs, and the Baker test, done using hundreds of tons of submerged dynamite in a vessel underwater. Nuclear fission occurs by bombarding uranium-238 with neutrons to split the nucleus and create the isotope uranium-235. During this split, mass is lost and converted into kinetic energy, which is known as nuclear fission. If each of those neutrons then goes into another uranium nucleus, causing more fission and many more neutrons, this creates a theoretical process known as an explosive nuclear reaction. Enrico Fermi's famous nuclear chain reaction test was done by stacking massive amounts of graphite and embedding balls of uranium within, so that when the neutrons started flying through, they would be slowed by the graphite, collide with the uranium, release more neutrons, and then those neutrons would continue in a chain reaction pattern. This achievement, which was only detectable by Geiger counter, meant that the fission process could be sustained.
Geiger counter picks up radio waves, and it's not a sign of being dangerous.
But in no way proved the possibility of a nuclear explosive chain reaction. In reality, all explosions are gas-related. For an explosive chain reaction to occur, there would need to be an explosive gas created or added. The byproducts of nuclear fission are 94% heat and 6% radiation. No gas whatsoever is produced by nuclear fission, and so there can be no massive destructive blast. Furthermore, to achieve intense heat from nuclear fission, millions of atoms need to be split in a chain reaction, which requires a moderator to slow down free neutrons. No such moderator is included in nuclear bombs, and even if it were, there is no test evidence that even this would result in an explosion. Recently declassified minutes of the Manhattan Project's Interim Committee meeting on May 31, 1945, reveal that America had insufficient uranium to build the atom bombs supposedly used on Japan just a few months later. Dr. Compton, director of the Met Lab at University of Chicago, who oversaw production of enriched uranium and plutonium for the bombs, was quoted stating it would take another 3 years to produce the amount needed for the bombs. Yet just over 3 months later, America supposedly successfully produced and deployed 2 on Japan without being tested. Enrico Fermi stated they would need 1/2 to 1 ton of enriched material to create a nuclear bomb. Natural uranium metal contains concentrations of 99% U-238, 0.7% U-235, and 0.3% U-234. Therefore, to obtain 1 metric ton of U-235, you need 142.8 metric tons of natural uranium. And for each metric ton of natural uranium, you need approximately 1,000 tons of uranium ore. Supplies of such uranium ore are certainly not unlimited, and especially in the 1940s were in short supply.
So
The Manhattan Project
one quick thing to point out here. We've heard constantly over and over again that Iran was weeks away for the last 40 years to creating a nuclear bomb, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, if the United States of America, quote unquote, were able to do this in 1945, you don't think that the Iranians have better technology in the year 2026?
They don't have ChatGPT telling them how to put this whole thing together, right?
The US was too advanced in 1945 that other countries haven't been able to replicate it. It's an absolute joke.
It's a secret. They keep the files in a briefcase that only President Trump can hold.
It's just a joke. It's like they're going to outer space theory, right? They lost the technology, since 1972. They can't go back anymore. And they can't make nukes now. Iran just wasn't able to quite do it.
So I want to make sure everybody's clear about what it is that we're talking about right now. If you type in weapons grade uranium, these are the images that show up. This 2068, this is plutonium that's showing up. And you can see here that we've got a guy with like dish gloves on. And
Super
the dish gloves only go up to here, and then his rubber sleeves or whatever. That doesn't look like he's too concerned about being cooked by. This is weapons grade uranium. This is the stuff.
The plastic is enough to stop the most deadly radiation that's ever created by mankind, right? Just some dish gloves.
This is the stuff that we're supposed to be so afraid of. Wipe out entire cities, continents, they say. And it's just a chunk of metal. It's just a chunk of metal, everyone. makes a Geiger counter make a staticky noise.
Interim committee minutes specifically mentioned that even reactor-grade uranium was in short supply and wouldn't suffice. Yet just 3 months later, the bombs were somehow ready and dropped. The footage we were shown of the supposed nuclear blasts at Hiroshima and Nagasaki show what appear to be two superimposed smoke plumes atop one another, in an attempt to make the mushroom cloud look larger. Rather than making the blast look bigger, however, it looks more like some secondary blast began mid-air. The footage of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki explosions look very different from the many other test examples shown previously, each of which also looked very different from one another. In reality, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were firebombed, just like Tokyo and many other Japanese cities. When footage of the aftermath is analyzed, it is clear that the destruction is consistent with traditional carpet bombing and not from a single nuclear explosion. If the damage shown in footage from the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was actually from these nuclear bombs, there would be a single central circular blast radius showing the most destruction at the center point, with gradually less expanding outwards. The debris and direction of destruction should all face outwards from this central location, and there should be an obvious blast crater at the site of impact. In World War II propaganda films, you can see footage of scientists pointing to the exact spot where the nuclear bomb supposedly landed on Hiroshima.
You get
There he is.
how ridiculous this is.
There's a tree right there. Look at the tree. You think that tree survived the blast of the atomic bomb, the destroyer of worlds?
These buildings right here, they made it. No blast crater whatsoever.
Yet the area looks no different than any other, and has no discernible blast crater. The damage immediately around the point of impact is no worse or more pronounced than anywhere else. The destruction found throughout the two cities is in fact consistent with traditional firebombing, with all smaller wooden buildings decimated and only a few larger stone and reinforced concrete structures still standing. The propaganda films claim to show buildings with windows blown in one side and out the other, or Hiroshima Bridge having the paint burnt off only one side. But these examples are clearly cherry-picked to give the illusion of a single blast, when the overall destruction is similar to every other firebombed Japanese city. There is also no evidence of long-term radiation damage anywhere in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. According to the experts, there was to be radiation and nuclear fallout for thousands of years, affecting people, plants, animals, and every living thing in the vicinity, causing generational deformities and a veritable death zone. In reality, however, flowers, grass, and other plants started growing back within a month, and radiation levels have dropped in both cities, recovering to normality within years.
All right, so I've got another video clip that shows these places now, and let's just jump over to this quick and check this out.
And Nagasaki, another airburst, would experience few, if any, long-term health effects from nuclear fallout, despite anecdotal evidence to the contrary. And indeed, this is what the majority of studies and summaries of studies point towards. And Hiroshima today has a population well over 1 million people.
So they save these as relics, and this is 1 million people plus, thriving city, no long-term health effects. There's more coming.
A habitable Hiroshima is contrasted with a place like Pripyat. Here, in 1986,
so this is supposed to be Chernobyl. This is supposed to be the uninhabitable area.
A nuclear reactor exploded and then burned for days, which dispersed actual pieces of nuclear fuel and longer-lived fission products across a large area. There was no nuclear detonation. Chernobyl was effectively a dirty bomb, not a nuclear one. As a result, Pripyat will remain.
So, as a result, It's fall and the leaves are coming off of the trees, yet people are still walking through here. This isn't radiation danger. People aren't going to die of radiation sickness, and it's not even killing the plant life. They just did this at fall, right? I think there's a little bit more.
Abandoned for decades, though spending time there isn't as dangerous as you might think.
No.
Today, stand in Hiroshima at ground zero with a Geiger counter, and you won't record anything above normal background radiation. Far from a nuclear wasteland, you'll find a thriving tourist destination, a carefully curated and cared for park dedicated to that day, where foreigners and buses of local school children can learn about what happened some 80 years prior.
All right. Obviously, radiation was a hoax, not a thing to be concerned about.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki are now bustling modern cities, 80 years later, with no remnant of nuclear destruction. The people there are not all born with deformities or chronic ailments, and there is no dangerous radiation or fallout to beware. Radiation exists and remains present in an area after any and every explosion, not just supposed nuclear ones. So if you drop a bunch of bombs or blast a ton of dynamite and bring a Geiger counter, you will certainly register radiation, but it will not linger for centuries or millennia like nuclear radiation is claimed to do. As for the explosions which occurred at nuclear power plants like Chernobyl and Fukushima, these were gas explosions caused by the buildup of hydrogen and not nuclear explosions. In fact,
now, hydrogen explosions is not something we deny at all. It's very real, except the big thing that makes it special is their implosions, right? Hydrogen implodes, and 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. When it comes back together, it makes water, and that's real fusion right there.
it is impossible for a nuclear explosion to occur at a nuclear power plant. Only gas explosions. Today, in Fukushima, you get more radiation from the backscatter scanners at the airport security gates than you do from their so-called nuclear disaster. The way nuclear power works is essentially just using hot radioactive material to boil water and generate steam, which drives turbines and creates electricity. One of the leading nuclear physicists in America, Galen Winsor, who was responsible for helping set up most of America's nuclear power plants, was a vocal whistleblower on this subject. He said nuclear power is really just the cleanest and most economical way to boil water, and that all nuclear power plants are essentially and practically just steam power plants. In his lecture tours he gave all across the country, Galen Winsor would talk about how he and other early nuclear physicists would regularly hold uranium, plutonium, and radioactive waste with their bare hands without any ill effects. He quipped about taking swims in the nuclear waste pools to prove they weren't hazardous, and when his colleagues refused to believe him, he began drinking a glass of water from the pools in front of them every day. In footage from his lectures, you can watch Galen open a tiny canister of radioactive material, supposedly dangerous enough to cause an EPA disaster area 1 mile in radius, contaminating everyone in the building. He holds it in his bare hands, runs a Geiger counter over it, which registers off the scale, licks all the radioactive material onto his tongue, tests it with the Geiger counter again, and swallows it. Galen Winsor did this demonstration for years, with no ill effects, and lived into his 80s. After trying to blow the whistle with his lecture tours, the government confiscated his nuclear material, sent the SWAT team to his house, and began harassing him legally. He was quoted saying, "There is no such thing as nuclear waste, only material created in a nuclear reactor to be recovered and used beneficially. High-level waste is radioactive and self-heating, and so reusable uranium fuel fits that definition. But if you disregard its intrinsic worth, then it would fit the definition of high-level waste. But let's say there is no high-level waste, and only material to be recovered and used beneficially. Then what's the low-level waste fiasco? That's an excuse for a federally mandated, non-inspectable disposal system so that organized crime can get rid of any evidence they want, and it can...
Really good point.
Yeah, you know how they have to, get rid of this nuclear waste, and it's very expensive. They have to dig these holes and create these chambers. So, people ask, why is it that Galen Windsor was allowed to do this, right? Because he basically helped create the power plants, the nuclear power plants all across the United States and ran them. And then somebody came in and told him, hey, you can't be in here. This is dangerous, right? They created their PSYOP and their fear campaign. But what they do is they always have the externalization of the hierarchy. A part of what goes on in this reality is where they tell you the truth. Certain members of certain groups are given certain parts, like Kent Hovind was given the debunk of the theory of evolution, yet now he'll tell you that he believes in dinosaurs. So they'll generally use these people that come out and expose these pieces of information for multiple ways. They can use them to then spin you off down other rabbit trails. And they generally like to use what's called lesser magic, where they literally tell you what they're doing to you. And if you're too stupid to get it, they believe that you deserve the karma that follows it. They're very evil, wicked people involved in these different programs. And they knew what Galen Windsor was doing. They let him do it, right? First, they took him out of his job and they created what he was. He was, removed from his position. And, a lot of people that did what he did lost their jobs. They said it was too dangerous and they began to be all this secretive stuff. And he fought back and they let him do it because they want people to know the truth. They don't hide it. It always is out there. You just have to fight your way to it.
Wade through the slop.
Can never be dug up again. There are allegedly stainless steel containers buried in concrete under the ocean, boiling with hot radioactive material for 2,000 years. The production...
That right there is energy that could produce electricity.
Storage, transportation, and disposal of nuclear materials is incredibly expensive and secretive. Protocols for dealing with nuclear waste materials involve allegedly burying it deep into the Earth's bedrock through such expensive procedures. In reality, as Galen Windsor showed, these nuclear materials are not nearly as hazardous or toxic as they are made out to be, and the over-the-top, secretive disposal methods likely double as black-budget, black-op covers. It provides the military-industrial complex a never-ending blank check for themselves to dip into taxpayer money. At many times during the nuclear arms race, America spent upwards of $50 million per day on nuclear weapons-related expenses, nearly rivaling NASA's huge budget. It is no doubt that incredibly high-powered ballistics, bombs, and missiles all exist, but the specific claim of nuclear weapons and nuclear explosions, which require fission, a nuclear chain reaction, and result in destruction on a scale far beyond conventional weaponry, is patently false. Nuclear fission simply does not produce any kind of gas necessary for such an explosion, and no moderator to slow down free neutrons is included in nuclear weapons. Declassified documents suggest the American government was years from having enough U-235 to produce the bombs allegedly dropped on Japan. Film analysis of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and nuclear test footage show countless anomalies pointing towards photo trickery and deceptive wartime propaganda. Radiation levels quickly dropped, and the destruction attributed to 2 nuclear explosions looked no different from the neighboring towns and cities destroyed by aerial firebombing runs. The stories of the little boy and fat man bombs were just the myths necessary to create the scaremongering Cold War arms race that would soon begin. The threat of any nation being able to push a button and destroy entire cities or countries is a perfect, terrifying excuse for America to enter and make war with anyone that supposedly harbors or develops nuclear weapons. Since the early tests, alleged nuclear explosions have continued to get larger and larger, while the payload continues getting smaller and smaller, to the point we are now supposed to believe that they can be carried in a suitcase. Teaching generations of children to duck and cover, hiding under their desks, has now instilled fear of a boogeyman just as bogus as the one under their beds.
That's a good video. Good video by Eric.
Yeah. So we wanted to get out ahead of this because world situation, they're talking about World War III and that nukes are going to be used during World War III. Now, we do believe that they're going to say that nukes were used, but we do not believe that nukes are real. So we wanted to get out ahead of this and talk about this. I've got more tabs, but I think we've sort of covered it sufficiently tonight to let everybody know that, hey, listen, this is just a theory that goes back to the ancient Greeks. It's never been substantiated. There's no proof that atoms exist. And that negates, that just totally throws out the idea of nuclear bombs, right?
Yeah, it undercuts it. If you take away the foundation, if you take away the table that the cards are piled on, or the whole pile of cards falls. So atomism is a hoax. It's a theory made up in the minds of lazy men that didn't want to do anything with their lives. So therefore, there's no such thing as the atomic bomb. And there are hydrogen bombs. There are sticks of dynamite. Nitroglycerin is very explosive. And when they're able to stabilize it, which I know they can, they're able to create very powerful types of bombs. So we will be seeing some large explosions, and there's a good chance that some of these might come to a town near you. And I just want to remind people not to have any fear. Oh, you've got the picture. Here we go. Look at this piece of information, everybody. Oh, Jason, I feel you've debunked me. Atoms do exist. Here's the picture of it, right? The something on an atomic scale so small that you can't ever see it.
Yeah, so they say that the first picture of an atom was taken, and then they give this, which clearly shows a camera outside of an instrument at a scale where you've maybe got like 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch nuts on something like this. And they say that in the center of this image, that dot right there is a single atom.
That's crazy.
So if you believe that, you are nuts.
So you can see it now. It's not an atomic scale. It's large.
Yeah. So all the evidence that they've created in an effort to support atomism, you can clearly see through it with just a reasoning mind. This wouldn't be possible. You wouldn't be able to see it if it was a single atom by definition of the size that they say these things are. So the whole thing, we've talked about it in the past, war being a hoax. At some point, it is actually going to become real, but we've shown that World War I, World War II, look at the cameras, the footage, and you're going to see the same issues. How did the cameraman get that shot? Right?
The nuclear blasts on some of the footage, they don't even interact with the clouds. They don't move trees. So again, time and time again, rumors of wars and wars have taken place, and they're going to continue. And again, my point to everybody tuning in is not to have fear, to live your life to the fullest, reach people, share truth, do things that you're passionate about. We just happen to be passionate about truth and information and getting it out there, and new music. And that's what we do. There won't be after the noise this weekend. We're getting close to having enough information to put out the next, podcast. So stay tuned for that on all our different places. We're on Reality Check Chat on Telegram. You can catch us there and interact with us if you're interested in, learning more. Jason has so much more, and we'll be back with more stuff. There's some scripture stuff coming up, so stay tuned. We're going to be keeping our eyes on this World War III. We'll maybe have to do war as a hoax again. We'll continue with that. And also in the description, or in a pinned comment, I should say, below this video, there'll be a link to the Awake Souls Rumble channel and the Limitless channel Rumble channel. And you can find where we've already gone through, missiles are a hoax, war is a hoax, extensively talking about the cost and what took place there, and all the different things that have gone on. You can really see how, the Russia-Ukraine war, how They're using inflatable, tanks, and they're painting tanks and helicopters on the ground. The whole thing is being run by a group of secret societies. And I just don't want people to fear, because the reason they're doing it is just to make everything expensive and to destabilize nations so that they can be conquered. They really want to push us into this new digital utopia that they're trying to create, where everybody lives in 15-minute cities. But listen, have no fear. Start a garden, get some chickens, do what you can. If you can't do that, just try to find local food, local sources of your own thing, and, just try to have a good attitude at the very least.
Yeah, so there will be a calendar update soon, True Hebrew calendar, that is, because March 19th, the majority of the world's going to be saying that it's Nisan 1. And that's going to put Passover at, you guessed it, April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day. Now, if you add the month that's necessary to keep Passover in the month of Nisan, or Aries, the lamb, guess what day it ends up being, brother?
Tell me.
That's May Day. May Day. So, interesting things regarding the calendar. We're going to be showing everybody the updated true eschatological chart with 2026 fulfillment dates, because you know what? This really could be the year. There's a lot of evidence.
It's looking like it, right? I'm excited. I see what's going on. I see things that are being fulfilled in prophecy. So I'm really excited. But thank you for this presentation, Jason. Thank you to YD in the chat and everybody that tuned in. I appreciate everybody, and all of you in the future. If you got anything out of this content, share it with somebody that might be interested.
Where's the only place people will get this content, brother?
Only on the Yahushai News Networks.
Me like I'm not even moving. You don't see my heart shaking with fear. You talk to me sometimes like I'm your boy. You don't hear my heart shaking for you. You are the only one I like to touch. I want it to last, and I want more. Talk to me sometimes like I'm your boy. You don't hear my heart shaking for you. I know we're not ready to be matched, but you know, like me,